Shahul, to give you a very brief introduction on today's resource person, Mr. Shahul Hamid. Shahul graduated Computer Science and Engineering from College of Engineering, Chengalur, affiliated to Cochin University of Science and Technology. Currently, he is a senior software engineer at Pierce Solution, Berlin, Germany. Previously, he has had a brief stint as a senior product engineer at Entry.app, a very popular online platform for education. So he has been into the world of online education for quite some time now. Shahul is the founder of the Youth Internet Governance Forum India, which happens to be a recognized body by the United Nations Internet Governance Forum. He has been a fellow to the ICANN 63. Okay, those in the internet domain knows more about what ICANN is and more about those details. So he was an invited fellow to the ICANN 63 at Barcelona. He has been a fellow of the Asia Pacific School of Internet Governance, and he is a steering committee member of the Indian School of Internet Governance as well. He was the past secretary of the Internet Society India Trivandrum chapter before moving on to Berlin on his new assignment. Welcome, Shahul, to this wonderful on this wonderful afternoon. Probably slightly early at your part of the world.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Shabir sir, for that
Yeah, and so the floor
introduction.
is all yours. The floor is all yours. You can probably take around 40 to 45 minutes, I suppose,
Sure.
on enlightening the audience here on how to secure themselves from the digital world, and probably after that we might get into a few Q&As and probably a little bit of discussion on more details, circumventing around your discussion today.
Sure, sir. Thank you. And I would like to thank Rajagiri College and Internet Society India Trivandrum Chapter to giving me this opportunity to speak and interact with uh, teachers and these participants. And yeah, let's get started with the session. So I think Shabri sir already gave me a brief, humbling introduction to me, so I don't need to. I can skip through this session. So the things which we will be discussing today, first of all, to give you a better context into this thing, why digital security is important and how we can securely access the digital world, because our lives are very much intertwined with the digital world nowadays. Because of the corona, fortunately or unfortunately, we are stuck to our homes and we are using digital technologies more than ever. So we need to know how we can securely access the digital world more than ever. And last, how we can ensure this message gets communicated to the next generation, because this is, I think, very much important to this community, because you are the teaching community, and it always say that if you teach a person, you teach 10 other people, but if you teach a teacher, then you teach a generation, right? So it's important that the teachers need to be aware about these kind of technologies, how they can safely browse through the internet, so that you can pass on this information to the next generation and from the next generation, so that we'll have a good digital secure generation in our country, in our state, like that. So these are the things which we'll be discussing today, and let's get started. Why is digital security important? So just to put a perspective there, mainly there are three things. This is a broader perspective, but then yeah, obviously to safeguard your data and privacy, because day in and day out we have our private communication, we share personal documentations, we share personal things, we share travel history, we use Google to search a lot of things, you use Google Maps to search for places, you use YouTube for entertainment, so you're using a lot of things. So primarily, first and foremost, we need to safeguard the data and also be aware about the privacy of the data we share in the internet. Secondly, we need to protect your assets you might have linked online, right? Like, for example, if you have an Aadhaar card, then you definitely have linked your biometric data and your phone number, your bank account, things like that. Also, if you are using apps like Paytm, PhonePe, then you're definitely link your UPI account or bank account to this. You might also have the banking apps from these banks. Then you might already have linked your debit card, credit card. So these are very much important to you, right? And because these are the physical assets you have in your life, and if it's linked to the internet, then definitely then there is a risk that it might be compromised. Third, to protect yourself from identity theft and fraud. So this is very important, especially since now you are mostly communicating your students with through online technologies. What if someone impersonates you and reach out to your students saying that, okay, hello Binu, so hello AB, you have an exam this day, or you have to pay this much for the certification exam sometime, and you are sending this email from your email ID to your students and sending with a UPI link or something like that. So students will think that it actually came from you and make the payment or the make the transaction. These things might happen, right? So you need to be aware about all these things. You need to be aware about all these threats that you have and you possess, and you have to be like safeguarded from all these problems. So this is why it's important. And so just to give you, I would like to have this presentation more like interactive way, in the sense that you need to have some kind of discussions if possible, but I'll try my best to show things around so that you don't feel bored to listen to something like for 45 minutes and such. So uh, I assume that most of you have a smartphone and you have an Android. Most probably some of them have Android, some of them have iPhone, but every one of us use Google Maps for navigation purposes, right? So it's something which we always use when we want to go to some place. We always check Google Maps direction. You put the navigation when you drive a car, bike, something like that. So this is a timeline. This is a feature which Google Maps has. Uh, so the caveat here is many people don't know that this location history is being tracked by Google from the day one you start using this Android phone, or the day one you start using a Google Maps app. uh, Unless we manually go to the settings and turn off the settings, they still keep track of your data. So I'll just give you an example so that you'll better understand the timeline data you have. Can you see my screen now, the Google Map screen? Shabri sir, can you?
Not yet. I
Okay,
think you have shared a window. Probably you might have to share your
yeah, I'll
desktop.
just, yeah, I'll just. What about now?
Yes, it
Okay,
is
so
here.
this is the Google Maps timeline. So this is on 27th of July. This is my account. I just wanted to show how it works. So this has the data like on 11:50 a.m. I started from China. This is where I am originally from. I went to the China railway station by bike. That data is there. It took 10 minutes. And then from there, I took train. It took 1 hour, 48 minutes to reach Ernakulam North Railway Station. Shabri sir, if you remember this correctly, we had the Internet Society Toronto executive meeting on that day at Kochi.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
So
remember.
and then I went to this Ceylon Bakehouse to have lunch, and then at Sarjaji Kedaba we had this executive committee meeting, and then I went to Whitela bus station, and then I came back to Kotte. So just check this link. I just wanted to show you a demo of this, and I'll go back to the presentation. Uh, yeah. Yeah. So just go to this link, google.com/maps/timeline. You will recognize how
Shahul, the
much.
presentation is not here
It's still
fully.
not there.
It's just
Okay, okay, okay. Just 1 second. What about now?
yes, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So basically, just go to this link, google.com/maps/timeline in your browser. You will recognize how much of data that Google has about you in terms of your travel history, even if you have not given them consent prior. So this is something. So I just wanted to give you a demo of how much data these tools have about you. I'll definitely show how to disable that. Don't worry, don't panic and all. I'll definitely show how you can disable that later towards the session. So this is just to want to give you a perspective of how much data these tools you daily use about you, how they can track you and do all these things too. Okay, now moving on, I just want to kind of put into perspective the main tools you use. You have education technology related tools for organizing meetings, organizing classes, like Zoom, the tool which we are already using right now. Then you might use Google Meet, Google Hangouts. Then there are other tools like Jitsi, Skype as well. And obviously that you definitely use messaging tools, I guess, to communicate with your students, like Slack, Telegram, WhatsApp. And then there is a whole suite of products provided by Google called like G Suite, which is like Google Docs, Google Hangout, Google Classroom, Google Sheets, things like that, and Google Forms, obviously, to kind of conduct graded assignments and exams. And then on a general usage, you might use e-commerce platforms like Amazon and Flipkart, and obviously fintech apps like GPay, PhonePay, Paytm, things like that. So these are the tools which you use regularly, right? So my presentation kinds of tries to help you to understand what are the threats or what are the problems associated with using these technologies within the tools, and what are the safeguards you can keep in your mind or you will be aware about while using these tools, so that you will be better prepared. First and foremost, uh, uh, passwords are the key to the online accounts, right? Every time when you create a user account, be it your online net banking, be it your Gmail account, be it your Skype account, be it your Zoom account, you need to create a password. That's how they authenticate, right? So this is very important, because this is the single point of failure you have while using the internet, right? Because this is where some other person can definitely impersonate as you, because if they get hold of your password, they can definitely let the service know that it's you only. So that's the only way as of now. It's not just the only way. There are other tools like multi-factor authentication, two-way authentication, things like that. I will get into that, but at the moment I think most of you have this only a single factor authentication with this technology. So if a bad actor gets hold of your password, then you are reused across multiple. So I'll just go back to the demo. I'll show you something that is very important at this juncture. So mm, okay, yeah, have you seen this website called haveibeenpawned.com? So this is a website actually which lists and tracks all the data breaches that has happened in the world since I think like 2008 or something. And so you might be aware about the news, like when you go through the news every day, or maybe at least once in a month, you see that okay, the data breach has happened in this website, has compromised, a lot of email IDs were stolen, a lot of user accounts were published online, and some terms like deep web, dark web, our accounts and passwords are available in dark web. So this is where you need to check whether your email ID has been compromised or something like that. So I have this very old email ID which I created when I was in school or something. So I have used this in many websites. So I'll just show you when I check what happens. So when I click on this, okay, it says yeah, you have been pawned. So these will show you some securities, but these breaches, these are like very old breaches, like it happened in March 2015. So this is a very old email ID I had. I just want to show it for demonstration purpose. But when you put in your email ID and just check in here, you can see that whether your email ID has already been a part of any of the data breaches that happened anywhere else in the world. So my email ID unfortunately was part of like 5 6 things, and these were the websites which were hacked, and their database was hacked, and their user accounts were compromised. So this compromised data included my name, my password, username, email ID, and bio. So why this is important? So what if I have used my email ID and password with this website? My password is already compromised, and I am using the same password for my net banking, right, or my Gmail account, my other Gmail accounts, or my Skype account. So what if they already have this email ID? They can just try with my other accounts, common, maybe Facebook, maybe Twitter, things like that, and try with the same password. If I had used the same password, then that means I'm compromised. My all other digital accounts are compromised. So this is exactly why people say that never repeat your passwords. Like always keep different passwords for different digital accounts. So whenever you are creating a new digital account, you make sure that you never reuse the password. Because if one website or one web service get compromised, so it gets into data breach, what happens is then all other data accounts will get easily compromised. So this is the lesson number one in terms of password security. So this check website, you can always keep checking this website, have I been pwned, and then you can just check whether you have been compromised or not. Now, yeah, yeah. And how to create secure passwords. So these are the very common rules, very common strategies which you can just take care of in your usage in the digital security. At least 12 characters. Usually they prefer 6 to 8 characters, but it's better because of the more number of characters you have, it's difficult for bots to calculate. So just to give you a perspective, it's not just people who are trying to get into your account. There are like automated softwares called bots, BOTS, which is like computers, machines, which is trying to get access to these accounts, right? Like So they will try with all the combinations in the dictionary, all the alphabetical permutations and combinations, they apply that. So when you increase the number of character, if you have learned permutations and combinations during like high school mathematics, you know that like the number of permutations and combinations will be much higher, right? So the number of length of the more the length of your password, the more difficult to hack or break it into it. So that's the reason why it says you should use more characters, and definitely mix it around, like use an uppercase character, use a lowercase character, use a number, use a symbol, and things like that. And definitely you should not use your username, you should not repeat that, you should not use anything which can trace back to you, like your name, your birthday, and a dictionary word, or use previous passwords, or not a keyboard pattern, or things like that, like QWERTY 1 2 3 4, I love you, or things like very common words which have been already used as a password like since ages. So never use that. So this is like tip number 2. And definitely I assume that like it's difficult to, like if you have like if you have a Gmail account, you have a Facebook account, you have a Skype, you have a Zoom, then it's like 5 6 accounts you have, right? So it's difficult to remember all these passwords you create for each account. So it's a difficult task, I definitely get that. So in that case, what you can use is you can use password managers. So these are like very handy tools, like LastPass, onepassword.com, dashlane.com. These are like very common, very easy to use password manager. What you need to do is you need to go to this password website, and then you need to create an account with them. And then what they have is like you have a browser plugin with you, right? So whenever you are using Mozilla Firefox, they have an Android app also with you. So you need to create a master password with which you will have one account with them. You will create a master password that you definitely need to remember. You should not forget that. And after that master password is done, you whenever you create a new email account, or whenever you create a new Facebook account, you can use this plugin to generate a stronger password for you, and it will save and remember it for you. You don't need to remember that. These passwords will be like a combination of special characters, numbers, very randomly used characters. So you will not be, it will be difficult for you to manually remember that, but the password managers will do that for you. They have Android apps, things like that. So it's a more secure way. So rather than having a strong password, it's a more way to kind of, so this is how I like structure my presentation. Start with the basics things and then slightly improve the difficulty further. So this using a password manager, still you can manage, you can have these one LastPass, one password Dashlane. These are all free software for personal use, and if you want it used to for your organization, like for your school or university, then you have to pay a little bit, I think. So this is about password managers. And if you have any questions related to password manager during the Q&A, just note those questions, and during the Q&A I'll definitely clear those. But I have to be very clear about this also, because using password manager means it's a single point of failure, right? So if the master password you created, if that is very simple, that is very descriptive about you, then the people who want to get into your account can easily hack it, right? So the master password that you create should be very strong. It should be very cryptic, in the sense that should not be easy to kind of guess or something. Then in that case you are safe. But if it's a simple one, then you are at loss. And definitely these password managers, they always try to improve their security, because now in their database they have these passwords of your accounts, right? So they're like a very stronger target for the hackers. But if you like use a premium, like LastPass, OnePass, these are like been in the industry for like long time. So they have very hardcore security practices. Their security practices are available online as well, and you can choose not to store in their database also. You can have a local copy. So when you get more advanced into password managers, you can use a password manager like KeePass, which don't store the database in their server rather than storing in your laptop. So it's more secure. You don't need to risk that your data is in cloud or something like that. So that's about password managers. And that's not just that. So to create a concrete password which you can definitely go to sleep without even thinking like you'll be compromised in some stage, you can definitely use this technology called diceware technique, which is being created by this gentleman called Arnold G. Rainward. The link is here. I'll definitely share the slides with all of your participants, so you can definitely check it. So this involves a technology where like you have a dice in hand, you have like six shaped, six faced dice, then you will roll it 4 times, and all the 4 times you have a number, right, like on the top. So based on that number, you take a word from this list of diceware word, and you create a random string based on that 4 price of dice. So that password, what it says is, it's scientifically proven because it's mathematically proven, right? Like you can see the permutations and combinations. So it's mathematically proven that if you create a password based on this technology, only like the company or government based funding technologies can hack or break into it. Like for example, NSA, like NSA of USA. NSA is like the world's largest computing thing, right? They have like power computers, microcomputers, I'm sorry, supercomputers. So only those computers can hack into it if you are using. So and definitely NSA won't be interested in hacking a school teacher or a college teacher in Kerala, right? So you will be very safe. So definitely using this technology is very safe. But if you want to further read and more get into it, you can definitely check that. So this is about the password thing because that's a very basic thing. And now getting into the next level. So when I started with the password, I told you that since it's a single point of failure, you are only having a username or a Gmail ID or a password. Then that means if the password is compromised, then you are at loss. So then that's when this new technology came. It's called a multi-factor authentication. That means like you have more than one way to kind of authenticate that it's you, the person. Like this is very common with bank accounts right now. Like when you make a transaction, you not only need to kind of log into your net banking and give the transaction details, you will get an OTP, right? So nowadays most of the companies are employing this not just for the transaction but just to log in also. Like when you go to the login screen, when you enter the username, when you enter the password, when you click on the sign in button, they'll definitely send an OTP, and then you need to enter your OTP, and then only you will be able to access the platform. So this is just to ensure that you have physical access to the device which you already told that it's part of you. Because for example, if the mobile number, we only have access to our phone, right? In natural cases. So this is just to double check that this is exactly you, the person who are trying to log into your account. So multi-factor authentication, there are a lot of steps. There's like so the OTP is one way. Then there is one thing called Google Authenticator, which is an app which you can install in your phone to kind of use for these services. And if you want to go further, there is this hardware devices called YubiKey. So if you have heard things like Bitcoin, blockchain, things like that. So when people buy Bitcoin and things like that, they used to store that in a digital wallet because Bitcoin is actually digital money, right? So they are very careful about the security of those aspects. So what they used to do is, apart from a two-way authentication, they implemented a hardware device to securely store that. So when you how I will just explain how it will work. So when you go to the gmail.com, first you will enter your Gmail username, you will enter your password, then you have to insert your key into your laptop USB port, and then if the USB port enters your properly enter your device, then it will securely log into your screen. So you might have seen this in some of these Hollywood movies or Bollywood movies, things like that. And recently, when the smartphones became very popular in terms of the two-factor authentication, they have something called like iris scan, fingerprint scan, which is very common these days. You might have already used that technologies. So these are also a good way to authenticate or to ensure that it's just you, the person, because the biometric data, the iris scan, the fingerprint is very unique to all of us, right? So this is about the multi-factor authentication. And this is how it works. You enter the password, username and password, then an authentication code is sent to the mobile device, and then the user enters it in the authentication code to log into the application. And this is just a single step. So you can, so some of the services which you already use do have two-factor authentication support. So for example, the Google account, which you have access to the Gmail, Google Docs, Google Forms. All you need to do is in your Google account, go to this navigation panel called security, and then in under signing into Google, you need to select two-step verification to get started. And then there is a lot of description which explains to you step by step how to set it up. It's very easy, very straightforward. But make sure when you enable this, then you need to have this two-step authentication thing, right? Like for example, if you change your number or if you got lost access to your phone, it makes it difficult to get access to your account. So there is one feature called backup codes. So whenever you turn on the two-factor authentication, there is a possibility to download some backup codes. You always download those backup codes, print it and keep it with you. So if you lose your smartphone, then you can always use this backup code to get back into your phone. Because if you are like the administrator or the principal of an HOD of a college and you have all the information stored in your Gmail account, everything like that, and if you lose your smartphone, then that makes you won't be able to log into your account anymore. So that's a risk involved as well, because the more secure you are, more you careful you need to be about your physical assets as well. So that's about two-factor authentication. So this was basically an introduction to the main threat or main area where we are being compromised, that's using the passwords. So Shabri sir, shall I go ahead, or shall we break for some questions at the moment, or do we need to do like shall we do the Q&A at the end?
It is 2:03 now, and there are quite a few questions here in the chat box.
Okay,
If you have a couple of minutes, maybe I can couple a
sure,
few questions and just shoot them out.
sure.
Okay, there is Princey Ann Thomas here who asks that she just checked out her password, her user account on our Have I Been Pawned website, and it
Yeah,
shows that the password has been compromised. So,
okay.
so her question uh, is this being shown that the password has been compromised early, and does changing the password immediately help?
So it clearly states the date in which that compromise happened, right? It clearly states the date of that breach happened and what extent that breach happened, like what all data is being stored. So, for example, when I showed that data, like it was compromised in 2015. So that at 2015, all the web platform or all the digital accounts where I had used the same password, I definitely need to change. And for example, if I had used a Gmail account, a different Gmail account with the same password, that means then the hacker will or may get access to the new account, right? So if Princey Ma'am's account was compromised this year, what she need to definitely do is to kind of change the passwords, change into different diverse password for all the accounts she currently has, and ensure that if there are any other data like her first name last name are compromised, then she need to change all the her social media accounts as well, because that's how the hackers work. Like if they get your first name last name and Gmail ID, they will use this data to do a social auditing. They will check Facebook, Twitter, whether this user account exists, and then they'll try to get all these access to other secure platforms as well. So definitely in a summarized way, definitely change all the accounts where she already used that same password in other platforms. So that's what she need to do.
Well, thanks, Shahal, for that answer. One addition that I might have to add, this is something that I tell my students always, check out Have I Been Pawned, that if you see red, don't worry, it's all gone. So go ahead, change your passwords. If
Yeah.
you see green, then be very, very careful. You have not been pawned yet. That's all what we can say on a circuit, on a security perspective.
Yeah.
So you are vulnerable if you've not been hacked till date. Now,
Yeah.
the second question that comes in here is uh, probably about password managers. One question from Dr. Sunita says if password management softwares are secure by themselves. And there's another question from Mr. Filson, I suppose, who says that do password managers use random generators for generating passwords? And is there any chance for that the iris scan and fingerprints can be compromised?
Okay, I'll take the first question right now. So password managers are do secure, but don't take my word for that. You can definitely check their website, individual website, dig a little bit deeper, like do a little bit of research about that company, and some of them do have white papers published on their algorithms. So like their complexity algorithm in where they generate these random password, and in technologies how they used to store these passwords. So that gives you a better explanation, better insight into how secure they are. And you can definitely trust industry watchdog articles, like major journalists, they have all reviewed these platforms, so you can definitely check that first. Secondly, in terms of yeah, that's about the security of password managers. And like try to use premium passwords. It's not just I'm saying just throw your money around, but when you are investing in something like a password manager, then that's definitely worth it, right? Like for example, if you have 1 lakh rupees in your bank account and you are using password like one I love you, and then you lose your net banking account, it's easy to spend like say 100 rupees a month for a strong password manager which safeguards your money, safeguards your data, safeguard your travel history, everything in online, rather than losing your money and your fame or your face in front of your students, things like that. So if you find a good manager, it's a wise step to invest in a good password manager. That definitely helps you a long way. So I'm not endorsing any password managers in that case, but definitely check the website, see if it's good. And I definitely recommend KeePass. It's a bit it's an open source. It's free to use. It's completely free to use. You don't need to pay anything. But the problem is it's a little bit technical to implement. Like you need to set up some things for that. Maybe Shabri sir, I think like as part of Internet Society or Rajgiri, we can do some follow workshops or follow events to set up a good proper password manager. How easy is it, and how easy to use it and things like that. So that's how we can solve that problem. In terms of iris scan, even I'm not an expert to kind of give a concrete thing about it, but there were cases like when Apple started using the face ID recognition, especially in China, where there like a facial features are very similar, very common, and especially when it comes to the eye features, some of the cases were reported. Even we cannot trust the news that's coming from China because that may not be original. But there, some of these news papers were publishing that Apple, when they first launched the Face ID, it was compromised and it was not working properly and things like that. So, but to be honest, I'm not an expert in that area, like to be very concrete about whether iris may fail or not. But I trust the fingerprint and things like that. I'm definitely trust because that's been working for a long time. But in terms of iris, I'm a bit skeptic about that. So that's my answer.
Well, I think the key takeaway there is that there is a trust factor which
Yeah,
we obviously have to be concerned about. Okay, so at the end of the day, നമ്മൾ ആരെങ്കിലും എന്തിനെങ്കിലും വിശ്വസിക്കണം.
yeah,
Okay, so be that a password management software or be that iris and fingerprints, you can't just go about paranoid that nothing works, but you just trust something that it works. But be safe, okay, rather than just being very hasty about using passwords and logins. Trust a few things and believe that we are safe and go
yeah,
forward.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's it
So
about.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll share my personal stuff, what I'm doing, so that might give you some idea. So ഞാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, I hope everyone understands Malayalam. So ഞാനൊരു കീപാസ് ആണ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. കീപാസ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ പാസ്വേഡ് മാനേജർ ആണ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. Yeah, so there may be people who don't understand Malayalam, right? Okay, so I'll switch to English. So yeah, sorry for that. What I personally do is I have a password manager which I use called KeePass. It stores the database in my local system, so it's not stored in cloud or anywhere. So I have access to that. I usually keep a backup of that into my external hard drive. And to generate the master password, I use the diceware technique. In diceware technique, initially it takes like half an hour to set up a password, but that's very worth because it secures your master password, which is the key to your password manager. And in the password manager, it generates the random passwords, strong secure passwords. Only caveat is that when I move from my devices, like when I from my personal laptop, when I move from my personal smartphone, it makes it difficult for me to log into my social accounts or things like that. But that's completely fine for me. For my personal use, I always prefer to access my digital accounts from my own laptop and my own smartphone. I never access any of my digital accounts, especially if it's a fintech account or a banking account, from any public Wi-Fi or any public laptops or any laptops which is being connected to a public network. So these are the things which I personally take care to ensure that my data and my accounts are secure. I think that might be some there might be some pointers for you to kind of follow or do. So
Yeah,
that's about
that's
password. Yeah,
yeah, that's a very useful information. And by the way, it's already 2:11, so I think you should go ahead with the
yeah,
presentation. There are,
yeah,
I'm waiting for more information to come in rather than
yeah.
keeping
Sure,
sticking to passwords. Yeah.
sure. So next, this is one of the key thing, like because I assume that like you have been using Google Docs, a lot of Google Suite products like Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Forms, and you are definitely getting these mails. You're sending these mails to your students or between your colleagues, and definitely there is some document, some mail like Mr. X has shared a document on Google Docs with you and things like that. This is a very common thing, right? This happens like very. So my younger sister is now studying in college, SB College, China City. So she's actually using Google Docs and things like that to kind of. So she showed me that these are the screenshots she gets every now and then, now and then from the teachers to when they share a document. So this was actually a spam, right? Like this was a breach which happened. So I'll okay. I think I have opened that. Wait. Okay, so I'll just go quickly. This was a spam that happened in 2017 using Google Docs. So what these hackers did was they manipulated this content, they manipulated this email and sent it to like thousands of users across the globe. People who clicked on this open in docs button, and when they click on this open in docs button, then it gets redirected to the Google authentication screen where they ask Google Docs want to access your email address, access your sorry access your name, things like that. When they click on give access, their accounts were compromised. It looks very genuine, it looks very simple and straightforward email, but it was a malware attack, I mean, sorry, a phishing attack from hackers. So what you need to do, so if you look at a little more careful, you look at the email address. It's like h, like very like easily identifiable email address. Like, but people, like, imagine your student situation when they get like 5 emails from you, the sixth email they won't even bother to check whether it was actually sent by you or something. They will just, okay, xxx has shared a Google Doc account, they will just straight away go to this email or click on the open in docs and then straight away give access to this thing. So this is what happens with the phishing scam. So phishing scam in general is they try to be as imitative to the original content, like for example a Facebook login screen or your online banking login screen, and then they try to kind of force you to use that service, their spamming service, their phishing service, instead of the original service, so that you enter your username, your password, or you give access to your account to their backend. And when you click on the authorize, or when you click on the sign in or submit button, their technologies will have the username and password. So this is a very common hacking methodology which has been used since 2000s. So what it is basically, so it's a convenient message which is socially targeted to you. You might either be clicking on a link, you might be opening a document, you might be opening a software, or you might be entering a username or password into a website that's made legitimate, like something like Facebook, something like online banking, things like that. So what do you need to do? So and some technologies definitely use things like paypal.com. PayPal is like an online fintech product based in US, and I think it's everywhere right now. So instead of that paypal.com, instead of using the small l letter, what they used is capital I letter, which pretty much looks like paypal.com, right? So when you check, like when you get an email from PayPal, it says, okay, you click on this PayPal link button. When you quickly look into it, especially in your mobile phone or in your laptop, when you quickly look into it, you won't recognize that it's a capital letter L, or sorry, a small letter L or a capital letter I. You just click on that link, then it might actually be paypal.com, right? So you will go to their website and it will look same as a PayPal actual website. You will enter your username, you will enter your password, you click on the sign in button, the password you enter gets compromised to their backend, and then you will be redirected to the actual website and says a screen message said welcome. So you won't think, okay, oh, nothing happened, you, the page just got refreshed, you enter your username, you enter your password, you go get into the actual PayPal website. You never even know that you were compromised. But actually when you actually clicked on the first link and entered your username and password, it was compromised at that point of time. So this is just simple example of a phishing attack. This happens a lot. So what you can do as a first step is this: check this website called checkshorturl.com, because nowadays people are using the short URL a lot, right? Like bit.ly, t.co. There are like a lot of shorten URL services to generate shortened links for Google Docs and things like that. Always check this website whenever you, before you click an actual short URL. Check this website and copy the URL you have been copied, and check the full length form, because it can be anywhere, it can forward you to anywhere, right? Because with the short URL you are not sure about which URL you are being redirected to. So always when you are being given a short URL, just put check this website, check shorturl.com. I'm not showing the demonstration because I think I need to be a little more faster. So just check this website and then just copy the link you have been given and just elongate it and see what it actually is, and then only you proceed with taking that. And another common thing is, like, always look for SSL, HTTPS links. Like we have this HTTPS, right? If it is HTTPS, that means it's a secure connection to that server. So your data, when you enter username, you enter your password, when you click on the submit button, then this data is being encrypted and sent to the backend, right? So that ensures that this data may not be compromised by any people who are sitting between you and that server. So there is this attack called man in the middle attack. What happens is, when you send your login and password to your Gmail or Facebook or SBI banking server, some people can sit inside the network, like in the router or the Wi-Fi, anywhere in between the connection that happens from your computer to the internet server's computer, people can snoop in and get the data. This usually happens when you use public Wi-Fi. But if you send the data encrypted by using HTTPS or things like that, then people who are sitting in like in between, the man in the middle attack never happens, or not don't happen effectively. They need to kind of come up with new technologies to decrypt that data. So always, 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 when you use HTTPS, like ensure that you use HTTPS in all the websites, like online banking, things like that. And if your college website or if your college assets are not encrypted with HTTPS, please do let your IT administrators know that we need to switch to HTTPS, because that's the best way to kind of ensure that your technologies or your website assets are being, or the data you are being sending over the internet is encrypted connections. So that is one thing. And another important thing is always uh, check the address bar. This is what I told you. Always when you click on, so this is another spam email, sample email, right? This might, I've just added something, so this might look very, very genuine, very original. Your password will expire in 1 day. This is my university, please click on this link to update the password. But this might, that link might look like myuniversity.edu/renewal, but when you click on that, that might be redirected to another link. Because you know that, like in Gmail, you can type a text, say click here, and you can add a link to somewhere else. Similarly, they will type myuniversity.edu/renewal, but the link that is being linked to that say text will be something else. So always copy that link. Never click on that link that is coming from an email which you don't trust. Just copy that text and then open a new tab, paste that text, and then check, just to verify you have, okay, this is correct, and then click enter. Because if you directly click on that link, then that might not be actually leading to where you are actually expecting you to. So this is very, very, very important, especially if you get a mail from your bank, especially if you get a mail from your college, university, things like that. Never ever click on the links directly on the email. Copy the link, paste it on your browser, then click enter. That's a way to go. And that's a tip number 3 for phishing. And for remember the corporate logo, things that the logo here, things like that can easily be duped, right? You can create templates, you can create on Mailchimp. A lot of tools to create these logos, things like that in a very similar fashion that your actually university sends you email, but it can easily be duplicated. So don't do that. And yeah, there's, so this was a phishing scam which I explained first. So it was posed as Google Docs, and it was sent to media outlets, businesses, educational facilities. People opened access to their Google accounts, and this actually I read in a newspaper, it literally ended up in 1 million, almost 1 million Google accounts getting compromised through this. Because this can happen, right? Just think this thing, the number of dogs you share to your students, and what if like one of the email actually came from a phishing guy or girl, because yeah, and students will click on that link and end up getting. So this definitely can happen. So what you need to do is, you whenever you send an email, do a second step in your WhatsApp group, or saying that I have sent this email. Or if it is possible, if you're sending like 10 emails or 15 emails, that not be possible, then you, whenever you send an email, just tell the students that always recheck the sender ID, always recheck the sender ID, and just cross verify that it was actually sent by you, and then only click on the links or click on Google Docs or things like this, because it is very important. Because I think like with the corona thing, a lot of the schools, a lot of the colleges are using Google Docs extensively, so this might come up, because this has been done in 2017. This can definitely come up again. This been proven, right? Yeah. So, and so general tips, again, defending against phishing attacks. First, keep your software updated. This is very important, because when you use tools like Zoom, Skype, all the software always update to the latest version. Because whenever they find a security vulnerability, what they'll do is they'll update this, they'll send a patch to update that security vulnerability and update it. But this is like, if you are still not updating your software and still like 2015-16 version, all the vulnerabilities that existed in 2015 will still be possible to attack you and things like that. So always update your software to latest version. This is very relevant. Second, use a password manager with autofill. So this is where the password manager becomes very handy. So imagine the case where you've been sending you got a phishing email from SBI, posting that SBI, some other hacker sent you posting an SBI. So you click on the link, you went to this website, and username, password you need to enter, right? So when you use a password manager, earlier I told you that the password manager has a feature which autofills the password if the domain is correct. So what the password manager is doing is, it's a browser plugin. It will sit inside your browser. It will check this website is the actual website. So sbaonline.com, https slash sbaonline sba.com, things like that. Only when the domain matches to that in that database, they will autofill the password, right? So when you click on a phishing link, you go to website. If you forgot to check the website URL, the password manager will not actually enter the password if it doesn't match the actual website that is being stored in their web database, right? So in this way, you can protect to a certain extent using password manager from the phishing attacks. That's the second tip. Third tip is always verify, double check the email with the sender. Always, if you see some random characters, some characters getting responded from the sender account, then definitely don't open. And Gmail does a good job in detecting some of the messages as spam, and they will indicate you that, okay, this has been sent to a lot of participants together, this might be spam, this doesn't look safe, okay. And they give some features, so definitely trust them in some of these cases. And lastly, this is again another technology where you can use to improve it. So the problem with email fundamentally is that I don't want to shatter your belief system, but I want to tell you this because you need to know that any person in the world can send an email which says that is being sent from you to other guys. That's possible. Unfortunately, that's possible, right? Because there is no way right now the email clients are verifying that this is actually being sent from you. For example, I can create a Python or a PHP script saying that this email has been sent from Professor Binu to Professor Shabrinath, and Professor Shabrinath, when he opens the email, he can see that Binu at rsct.ac.in. He can see that. I can do that. Anyone can do that. That's very easy and straightforward. In that cases, what you need to do is, uh, or even Gmail has this technology now. What they show is if the originating headers are not actually from the server, like for example RCT server, then they will show that this email may not actually came from this original sender. So Gmail have started showing that thing. Another thing you can do is implement a more stronger uh, technology like pretty good privacy. So I think Internet Society Random chapter, we organized a workshop last AGM on to the participants on how to use the PGP protocol in email. In this way, you can actually sign your email. So whenever you are sending an email, you can sign your email with encryption technologies. And when you receive an email, I can always verify that it's been actually sent from Shabarina G Pillai or Professor Binu. I can always do that. So there are technologies where you can be more secure, but it depends on your risk scenario. Or like if you're an HOD, you're a principal of college, it's important that you are sending these financial contracts or emails that will be very crucial, very important to your organization. Please try to switch to PGP protocols, use that so that you can be very sure that, or your recipients can be very sure that that mail has only been sent from you. So this can be done. So but it's a bit technical, I can't like explain everything how to do that, but it's for further reading. If you're interested, you can definitely go to Google, search how you can implement PGP simply. There are like a lot of plugins, a lot of tools for that, so please research. So that's about the general email phishing. And now some interesting thing which have recently popped up in India, especially with the rise of fintech apps. Everyone has access to the fintech apps. It's easy to transfer money. Earlier we used to wait for neft to happen like 2 days. If you transfer something on Friday 5 p.m, then you have to wait until Monday 10 p.m for the banks to process the thing. But now it's very easy, but it's very convenient. But then the hackers also came into place. So since the transaction became very easy, they also want to make money out of it. So these are some of the spam or phishing messages or emails you might get. For example, your Paytm has been suspended, Paytm Office PH, things like that. Or you, this is something which I've recently so a friend of mine, she's a doctor, she got this recently, very recently, like last week. She was called, she put up some offer on an OLX website to sell something, and she got a call from this person saying that he's interested in buying that, but and he's paying the money. He told her that he's actually paying the money, but actually what he did was he requested the money, that amount, right? And then put up some congratulatory message or something like that. If he or she is not digitally equipped or not aware or just thinking about something else and just click the pay button and enter the password, things like that, then you will lose that money, right? It's very simple and simple. And if you have read, I think when I've read this in news, this happens a lot every month. And now if you turn the 6th page and 7th page of Malayalam Manorama, you see a small column where you can see that Paytm fraud happened, UPI fraud happened. They target elderly people who have smartphone. When they get these messages saying that congratulations, you have won Google lottery, you have won this much lottery, you need to pay 1,000 rupees to get this, they'll just click the pay button and they will lose the money. So this is very important. And this is a story, the fraudster. So I will just quickly go through it. They will say that they are from the army, they are from the police, they are from the government. They will add the phone pay logo. So I'll just show. So this is a sample thing. So they will add a phone pay logo to their user profile. So when they request something, a phone pay logo will come there. They will add their name as phone pay limited, so that you understand that it's actually coming from the company. And they will put some congratulatory messages. Okay, to receive, click here, payment successful, or things like that. You click the payment money. And similarly in like they dupe the merchants things like Flipkart. They add so if you look carefully, the Flipkart Private Limited, they don't have a UPI address like that. So if you look carefully, you can understand that. But when you first look into this, you will definitely be distracted. You will definitely be thinking that this is a genuine thing. I need to pay something like that. Then you pay and you will eventually lose the money. So this is something which you should definitely care. So this is what you need to remember to be safe. You never have to pay or enter your UPI pin to receive money, right? Like when you are receiving money, you never need to enter. Have you ever entered your UPI pin to receive money? No, right? Whenever you are requesting, you are sending money, that's when you are entering your UPI pin, right? So always take that in your mind. That should be in part of your muscle memory. Never enter your UPI pin when you're receiving money. That happens automatically. You don't need to enter anything. So when they are actually asking you money, that's only when you need to enter your UPI pin. And if you have been send a fraudulent call, collect call request, they call you, they tell you to. So this Paytm fraud that recently happened, they ask you to install an app called a Team Viewer. And then in that Team Viewer, the person who are in the other side can access your phone, right? So when you install these apps, when you get a call from these people asking to install apps like Team Viewer, asking for your password, your OTP, always verify, always recheck. Usually they don't call like that. Never, these companies never call and ask for confidential details. They make it very clear. So when you get a call like that, you tell them, okay, this is my email ID, or you already have my email ID in your database, right? So you just send a mail to my email ID and I'll take it from there. And then after cutting that call, you reach the support. Customer care supports are available. You just reach out to them saying that, hey, did you reach out to me and about any OTP thing or any password thing, so that they can track this number and block it or report it to the police. So just keep these things in your mind while using this fintech, because it's very important. Because the more convenient your fintech application became, the more convenient it became to hack you or cheat you, or get your hard-earned money, steal your hard-earned money. Okay. And so, yeah, in a nutshell, use secure passwords, stronger authentication methods, beware of threats like phishing spams, act responsibly, and never share your OTP and things like that. So I'll just quickly move to the next. So video conferencing tools are the new norm. So fortunately or unfortunately, with the current situation, it's this, right? Like you are using Zoom, you are using Skype, you are using Hangout. So it's important that you need to know about the technologies. You need to be aware about to be secure. So the problem is the Zoom, when you generate a Zoom, there is a meeting ID, right? That meeting ID is a number, like it's a combination of numbers. So this can be easily automated. So I'll just show you that problem. So this is a recent problem which came because of the Zoom bombing. What happened is, like when you create a Zoom account, when you don't enable password, when you don't enable it private, if it is a public URL and you post it in Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, everywhere, asking people to join your workshop or your event, what happens is this ID gets posted to anywhere else, or people who are sitting, who are jobless, who want to get into your account, they will try random numbers and they will get access to your Zoom account. They will share their screen, they will share some videos which is not appropriate, things like that, and they completely take over your session and kind of this. And this happened recently with a seventh grade class in US. The teacher was teaching seventh, no, it was fourth grade class in US. The teacher was teaching a session and some people randomly go to them, they started sharing child pornographic video. And it took 1 week of counseling for these kids to came to overcome the trauma they had faced during that Zoom bombing. So this is a very happening thing. It's happening in US. It definitely will happen in India. So you have to be very aware about this situation. So if you want to further read, you can go to the Zoom bombing session article in the Wikipedia. So this in its simple essence, what it is, it's all about the hackers who are trying to access your Zoom online session, your Google Meets, your Hangout session, and trying to share the content they want to share and kind of jeopardize your session. So that's what it's all about. So what you can do to prevent or solve these issues is always set a password for your phone. Never ever create public URL, public meetings, public sessions. Always create a password and then communicate this password separately. Don't share your meeting link and password publicly on Facebook. Then there is no point in setting the password, right? Always share the meeting URL to your participants and then send the password separately to the, maybe you have a class WhatsApp group or a Telegram group, send the password separately or send them email individually. You do that. Or and then also you can ensure that require a password. Okay, no, you can ensure that there's one more step further before that, like we did for the Rajagiri workshop, Rajagiri sessions. You had a registration first, right? When you are registered only, then you will get the password. So that will ensure that no one else will get access to this password in a public setting. And always tick this option, avoid join before host and identify guests. In this way, all the guests who are joining this session will only be able to attend this when you click accept. So that way you can ensure that no other parties will be able to access this. And only allow sign, if you enable this only sign in users to join. In that case, what happens is the people, when you get invite people, for example binu at rajagiri.com, and only with that email id they will be able to log in. Otherwise they will get this screen as an option. So these are the things which you can do to implement while implementing the Zoom sessions and Google Hangout sessions. And additional measures, always update the software, because Zoom always releases its patches. Never think that they are distracting and they may take some time. It's very fast, very simple, straightforward process. Always do that. And yeah, this I've already told. Disable file sharing, because this should only be done by the host and the moderator and the speaker. Always disable general file sharing, because they may be able to share anything. Once the meeting starts, log the meeting. If you think that all the participants have joined, just log the meeting. That's the best way to avoid any perpetrators getting access to the thing. And yeah, these are very straightforward. Remove unwanted distractive participants, manage the meeting chat, things like that. And disable participants video if you don't want. Just if you want to enable only the speaker or the moderator video, you can always do that. And if you want to preserve your privacy, there is this new feature which allows you to blur your background. You can always blur your background and things like that. And since this is very important, and since you are dealing with a very sensitive community like the student community, if anything happens like that, Zoom has a dedicated support line to help you with this. And if it's completely okay to it's kids, right? Like if like for example, imagine the situation of that fourth grade kids who were attacked and who've seen very inappropriate videos that they should not see in a classroom. So imagine that traumatic situation. So it's very important that you, if it's possible, to give proper counseling and uh, seek professional advice from a mental health professional. It's possible for them. So, and you can always report, make sure you report it, so that that case get reported and those perpetrators get banned and they will not be able to repeat that thing anymore. And we are getting towards the end of the session, but I just wanted to keep some more general strategies where you can prevent digital securities. Always keep your software update in your computer and try to use a good antivirus software. I don't have any stronger recommendation, but I do recommend Avira antivirus. Always use their free version. That's a good antivirus software. Or if you want, if you can invest in a good antivirus software. And if you're Windows, I think Windows Bit Defender, there are tools like that. Use good technologies like that and keep it updated always. And third, use stronger browsers like Mozilla Firefox. Firefox is a more privacy. I'll definitely advocate for this because it's a non-profit company. It's not making any money out of it, but it has stronger privacy protection controls. It has stronger password managers. It has stronger privacy. Do use that in your smartphone, in your system. Use Mozilla Firefox. If you want to further improve, you can use browsers called Tor browser, but that may be too much of a solution. But Mozilla Firefox will definitely solve all of your problems at this moment. And make sure your passwords are well chosen and protected. Try to use a password manager and integrate the password manager's plugin with your Firefox. And if you have computers in your computer lab or in your institution which is doesn't need internet, don't connect it, because the moment you connect your device to the internet, that's when it's getting compromised, right? Like that's the point of vulnerability starts, right? If you don't want it to connect, then just don't connect it. Just keep it out of the LAN cable. Just don't enable Wi-Fi. You can use that for storing your confidential. So this is some general tip I tell to the people, especially in organizations. So when you have a computer, store the confidential information, store the student records, store the financial records in a computer which is not actually connected to the internet. so that your computer cannot be hacked or got access via internet. But then the vectors would be threat vectors would be USB drives, CD drives, the storage devices you will be using on that computer, right? So make sure you have a clean pen drive or a clean hard drive. You use the data, take the data from that computer, and then when you want to share it over internet or something like that, then do it from a different computer. So the computer which you want to be completely secure, never connect that to the internet. Keep it as a separate one. I know it's very cryptic, but that's the way to do it, because the moment you connect to the internet, then you are vulnerable. And never download any pirated or cracked software online, because nothing comes for free, right? The main source, the 95% of malware, phishing software that comes into your computer comes through the cracked and pirated softwares. So never do that. When you download a zip file, when you download a RAR file, when you open that, these files gets triggered and stored in your computer. So never do that. And being a person from free software, being a person who is an ardent advocate of free software, I always suggest people to switch to Linux. It's more secure. It's I'm not saying that there are no viruses in Linux, but if you switch to technologies like Linux, it's more secure, and it's less target to the hackers and things like that. So these are some general tips which you can use to secure your computer. And securing your smartphone, because this is very important. This is very important in the sense that you are very much intertwined to use a smartphone. It's there in everywhere you are taking it with you. It's in your wallet, it's in your pockets, you are taking it everywhere. So it's very important to secure smartphone. Keep it all updated. Browse web safely. Set a proper screen lock. Try to do it with a biometric thing like a fingerprint or iris if it's possible. Always keep track of the permission manager. So this is very important, and this is something which you never take. So for example, if you're installing a calculator app, or if you're installing this Ludo game or something like that, always check for the permissions they're asking for. If a Ludo game is actually asking, or a calculator app is actually asking for your camera permission, then you have to be very careful, because calculator doesn't need a camera to work, right? Calculator is doing some mathematical calculation. So whenever you are installing your apps, when you are giving access to your file system, when you are giving access to your camera, be very careful. Only give access camera whenever it's needed, and always audit. When you go to the settings in your Android phone or your iPhone, iOS phone, you have this permission manager where you can see all the permissions you have given to the various app you currently have. Do audit that whenever you get it, like every 3 months, every 6 months, audit the permissions you've already given, and see if there are some apps which you are not using anymore. Just uninstall it and revoke any permissions you have already given. Do that very carefully, because if some app gets compromised and if it has a camera, the biggest problem with the smartphone camera is, now when you are purchasing, you buy the best camera phone, right? 13 megapixel, 15 megapixel front camera, back camera 20, 40 megapixel. And the problem with the smartphone is, in the laptop, when the web camera is on, at least you can see that light linking, right? Whether that web camera is on or not. Do you see a light on when the webcam is on, like the smartphone camera is on? You never, right? You never know when the camera is actually capturing your photo or video. I don't want to frighten you, but imagine the places where you take your smartphone with you. You are taking a surveillance camera with you every now and then, right? That's a threat. That's a threat there. But I'm not like being very negative at this point of time. But if you are very careful about the apps you install, if you are very careful about the apps that have the camera permission, you are safe. And if you update the software, you update the operating system, you are safe. It's not just I'm saying that you are vulnerable to attack at this point of time, but be very careful. If you have a calculator app, or if you have an app which doesn't need camera but has camera permission, be aware of it. That and disable location history, web and web activity, if you actually careful about your privacy, because I showed you that data, right? Like on 25th of July 2019, Google has the data where I started and where I ended, and what mode of transportation I took to reach from there to here. It's a surveillance system. So if possible, so this is where you can do that. Go to the privacy settings, and this is something which is very important. This is something which you every day you tell that, right? If you call someone using WhatsApp call and you discuss about a product, say for example you are planning to buy an iPhone, when you check Facebook you see an advertisement for an iPhone, because they are collecting the voice data and they are using it for ad personalization, right? So if Google is doing that, you can do this. Go to the privacy setting, click on the tab ads, and in the screen that appears to be careful, you can click on the opt out of ads personalization. This is one thing you can do. But with the WhatsApp, you cannot do anything because WhatsApp and Facebook is unfortunately owned by the same company, Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. So if you tell something on WhatsApp code, even though they say that it's end-to-end encrypted, but it's not completely end-to-end encrypted. They can always get the data from there. So yeah, things like that you have to be very careful. So to disable the location history, web and app activity, you can go to the privacy settings. There is an option called location history. Just turn that on. Post and web history, just turn that on. Turn that off. Sorry, turn that off. And yeah, so coming towards the criminals, they're all, so when the security people are innovating, the hackers are also innovating, right? They are like smart brain people. So always they will find new ways to get into this thing. So what you can do is you pass on the knowledge, try to be as responsible as we can, be very careful, don't take it for granted, all these things. Be very careful when you use the technology. When you newly create an account, be very careful about the password you set and things like that. Never reuse your password anywhere. Always have different password for different platforms. And please do pass on the knowledge to the students, because for our next generation or the current generation to become responsible digital users, it's important that the teachers need to pass on this information, because you are the critical point where they get this knowledge and information from. And it will be great if you can share this knowledge to the students. And final thoughts, it's optimistic. So since I'll just a small personal thing, I've been working in the education technology since 2014. So I've seen this gradual shift. Like, so when I was working in Entry, the company in India, in Kochi, so when we used to approach schools, colleges, we say that digital security is important, digital tools are important, you have to move to this. The schools and colleges used to say to us that, oh no, this is not going to happen in our generation. The digital people will not use online tools to teach anything. We still love the smell of the chalkboard. We still love this. We need to feel the smell of the chalkboard. We need to feel the smell of the chalk, that sound. Then only the teaching becomes effective. But see what's happening now. Everyone has changed. Everyone. So we cannot predict the future, because it's happening very on a very fast basis. It happens. Maybe Corona forced it, but things are happening very fast. So always be open to new ideas, always be open to new suggestions. Don't shut your mind thinking that, okay, this is not going to happen in our generation, this is not going to happen in the next generation. This will happen. If Corona happened, I'm not saying something bad as Corona will happen, but technology changes are useful as well. Like if you see this, I just want to share this video quickly, if it's possible. Stop sharing. uh, yeah, yeah, you might have seen this video, some of you. Grammarly can help. So there's an ad. So this is a government school which uses augmented reality to teach. Okay, so if you check the YouTube, you'll be able to see that video in depth. I don't have much time, so I'm not showing the video in depth. But there are tools like augmented reality, virtual reality, which will bring more effectiveness to your teaching. You can do personalized teaching. You can use machine learning to identify your strength and weakness of each and every student sitting in your class, help them learn effectively. So embrace technology is what I would suggest. Embrace technology and be aware about the pitfalls. Be aware about the security things. And if you are aware, then you are not afraid, right? I think that's the problem. The awareness is not there. If you have the awareness, then you will not be afraid to use any technology. So please do spend some time in getting awareness, learning, attending workshops like this. And I think that's so optimistically, this is a good opportunity to reinvent the education and further increase its effectiveness. So I think that's from me. So if you have any questions, yeah.
Well, thank you, Shahul. That's been a very interesting presentation all through. Well, we've overshot time by around 15 minutes here, but I think there are quite a few questions that you should take. And
Yeah.
one more thing that I must add in here. Usually, while moderating sessions, I've seen people leave during the meeting, but this must be one of those very few meetings that I've seen people pouring in through the duration of the meeting. Thank you very much for that, Shahul. Anyway, a couple of questions that I think we should take at this point of time. There's this beautiful question. Can I let me just scroll up and find that question for you? Okay. The question goes like this: is it true that using Apple devices will make you completely immune to security fraud?
Yeah. So it's I'll just continue with what Shabri sir told, answer the last question. It's about whom you trust, right? if you are okay in trusting Apple as a company, then that's completely fine, because Apple has always been advocating for privacy and security. I'll just give you a quick example. Apple even went to the extent they went against the Federal Investigation Bureau of US FBI. They went against them in a court because there was a terrorist attack in San Jose, California, and an iPhone was captured from there. So FBI wanted Apple to unlock this iPhone so that FBI will get access to the terrorist attackers' information about. But even at that point, Apple very strongly advocated against that. They will not break that iPhone. They will not break into that phone and give the user data, because they prevent, they are in the market for user privacy. They sell the premium phones for user privacy. They won't do that. So during the Asia Pacific School of Internet Governance in Bangkok, I had a great opportunity to meet Susan Landau. She was the lawyer who appeared for Apple in that case at the San Jose court. So she was telling about this story. So Apple is a very good, but I'm not a strong fan of Apple because it's a closed source. I'm an open source person. But if you invest in a good phone, then definitely Apple is definitely worth considering. But there are I'll share some of the links. Like there is an operating system called Lineage OS, and there is sorry, I'll just type it in the chat to everyone. Lineage OS, and there is this phone called Fairphone. I don't know whether these are available in India right now, but it's available in Europe. So these phones don't track anything. They don't. There are some elementary laptops as well. They don't. These elementary laptops are currently being used by Edward Snowden, who was part of this NSA leaks, and he's currently living in Russia in asylum. So he's using these elementary laptops. So they don't have a Wi-Fi port. They don't have a radio thing. So these are like very cheaper alternatives to things which you can use without iPhone getting logged into the iPhone ecosystem. The problem with the iPhone ecosystem is that when you get into the Apple ecosystem, you have to purchase a whole lot of things, including your battery, including your charger. That shoots your budget by a lot. Like you have to end up spending 1.5 lakhs rupees to kind of get into it. So there are cheaper alternatives as well.
Well, thanks, Shahul, on that info. There's another beautiful question that once you give permission on your data to an application that you get installed on your phone, what happens after the application is uninstalled?
Yeah, so this is a problem we have because we don't have a general data protection regulation in India yet. So as of now, all we can do is we can trust the privacy policy. So whenever you install a software or whenever you click on sign up in an account, there is something which we always skip, right? I agree to the terms and conditions. You just click on the tick button and submit. You never bother to read that, right? In the terms and conditions, it clearly states where they are storing the data, how long they are storing the data, and things like that. Like when it installs, what happens to the data. As of now, we don't have a strong data protection regulation law. Sri Ramakrishna committee, there's a committee that has been set up for this. They're still working on the first draft. They are not released. Once that is released, then the government can enforce the companies to do, these are the mandates, you have to delete the data. So for example, in Europe, there is a regulation called GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation Law. It mandates that, so for example, if I have installed Uber or if I have installed WhatsApp, I can always send a mail to WhatsApp or Uber saying that what is the data that is being stored about me, and I can request for deletion. I can request for them to delete that data. So that's completely possible in GDPR if you are a EU citizen. But unfortunately, for Indian citizens, it's not yet there. But the direction is going good. The Sri Ramakrishna committee, once it's done, when it's presents a report, when it comes as a bill once it's passed in the parliament, then it's hopeful for us. As of now, we have to trust the terms and conditions of the individual apps and companies.
Well, thanks, Shahul. Lots of appreciations and thank yous pouring in. One more key information that the panel would like to know from you: what would be a good platform given the security issues of Zoom? How would you compare WebEx, Google Meet, and Zoom as a platform for online education? And can you suggest any applications to implement augmented reality in classroom teaching?
Okay. First, I will tell the secure end-to-end encrypted platform called Meet.jitsi. It's an end-to-end encrypted platform. They are not storing any data. They are not sharing any data. It has this open source package where you can install, for example, if your university have Amazon Web Services or cloud infrastructure, you can set up this Meet.jitsi in your platform so that you can store everything there, so nothing gets leaked. So I always recommend people to use that, because Google Hangouts, they are storing data, Skype, they are storing the data, Zoom, they are definitely storing the data, and they have told that for free accounts Zoom is not using end-to-end encryption. So I would highly recommend to use meet.gc. It's a good tool, but it's so the problem with the open source, like it's like similar to the Linux, it's not that user friendly when you compare to the proprietary software. But when you start using it, when you start enforcing it, then it does the work for you. And towards the augmented reality, there are open source libraries, open source tools for doing VR AR. But Facebook has a good AR VR tool, Facebook AR VR. If you Google that, you will get. I can send you the links also, because it's a very more matured product. It You can create filters where you can show, for example, if you want to show a chemistry lab experiment in your classroom, that's completely possible with the Facebook AR VR. But you need developers to build that for you. So maybe that's when I told you, like, you have to embrace technology. Maybe get into a tie-up with a local startup in Kochi or Trivandrum, ask them to develop a AR VR based technology for you. They will definitely do that for you.
Okay, thanks, Shahul. So probably the key takeaways from the second half of your talk would be like, don't go ahead and just allow all while you click. Second thing would be click very safely. Make sure that the link you click is actually the link that you want to be clicked. And probably the first part of the talk would be to secure yourself by using a very good password.
Yeah.
There are a lot of thank you messages and very informative appreciations coming in. Okay, there's a new question here. If I notice, okay, I think you've probably answered that question earlier. So we are into like something like 14:53 right now. Surpassed our time by close to 30 minutes. So that actually shows how valuable and how interesting was your talk. Through, I mean, with still 171 participants into the talk, without people going away in between. So that's a wonderful top presentation from you, Shahul. Very informative and highly appreciated by the audience, and a lot of key information for me as well to take back home. Thank you so much, Shahul, for that wonderful presentation of yours.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to thank Rajagiri and Internet Society Trivandrum chapter to invite me for this session, and I hope it was informative to you. I've shared my password, my email, sorry, shared my email ID, charlotte@computer.org. If you need anything, just reach out to me or the email, and make sure I send it from my original ID when you receive an email from me.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you,
thanks,
Shahul.
thanks again, Shahul, and it's over to the Rajagiri team to wind up the session.
Thank you, Shahil, for the enlightening session, and thank you, Shabrinath, for moderating this session. Okay, one more thing, participants, you have to update the attendance and feedback of this particular session. After that, you may leave. Tomorrow, we'll be having a session by Vijay S. Sakare IPS, IGN Commissioner, Kochi City Police, and he will be talking about data and security risk in cyberspace. And Mrs. Binni Varghese, PG teacher, Rajagiri School, will be moderating the session. So there is a shift in the timing. We'll be continuing with the same timing, that is from 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Okay. So thank you very much. Those who have filled the form may leave the meeting room. Thank you, Shabitina sir, and thank you, Shahul. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It's been
Bye.
wonderful to be
Have a
part
good
of
day.
this.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day. Thanks and bye.